Hi everybody, welcome to the pitching masterclass with an interesting title of Lessons from the Other Side. Why the other side? Because here in my company are three prominent people representing publishers and investors who are usually on that other side of a table or a stage whenever you're doing a pitch. So first of all, can I have a head count among you? Like how many of you in the audience are actually indie developers? Can you please raise your hands? Okay, so we definitely have a few. So here in my company, starting directly from my right side is Andreea Chifu, the high priestess at Raw Fury, the not so new but definitely upcoming and growing publisher that's doing a lot of things recently. Then next to her is Jeferson Valadares, who is the GM of Namco Bandai America. And then at the far side is Martine Spaans, CEO and owner of Tamalaki Games. Can I have a deeper introduction from each of you on your career so far? And can you tell me a bit more about yourself? Starting with Andreea.
Yes, but first, when you said the other side, I thought you were going to say again that we are the bad guys.
No, I would never say that.
No, I don't believe that either. Yes, so I recently joined Raw Fury, and one of the reasons is because they gave me this cool title, among others. Yes, so there I'm helping them on the business and on the sales side. I'm responsible for the sales strategy and for the partnership and distribution. Before that, I worked for a few years at Paradox Interactive in Stockholm as well. And before that, I was working actually in Romania. So this is where I started in the games industry 8 years ago. And yeah, I'm really happy to be back here and to see that the industry has changed so much in the last years. So I'm really excited about it. Yeah, so I've been working all the time on the business side. As I said, helping the companies with their distribution and their business development and handling all kind of partnerships across all over the world. And for a while I headed also the mobile department at Paradox Interactive, and there I had a chance to interact with a lot of developers. And hopefully there will be more and more of that at Raw Fury.
So you definitely saw more than few pitches being done. Thank you, Andreea.
Yes.
Jefferson.
Yeah, so I was gonna try to do introduction based on pitching and like how is that connected, but and then I was kind of thinking that I don't think there's ever been a moment in my whole career where I wasn't pitching something. So even there's always in the beginning I had my own company, so obviously I was like, pitching clients and stuff. But then later when I'm working for a publisher, then we're pitching. Like as a developer, like manager of a studio, we're pitching the publishing team, like, hey, we want to get this game out, and then what do you guys think? And then now, which I am kind of on the other side of the table as a publisher, I get the studios pitching to me, but I also got to go and pitch my boss and stuff, and I got to go to Japan and pitch the Japan guys and stuff. So it's always like, it's something that you just need to be. I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do, obviously, but particularly for me, like I don't think I could have done my job if I didn't learn how to do this. So,
Yeah, of course. The games industry life of pitching. Martine?
Yeah, I've actually always been on the receiving end of pitches. I've been in the games industry for more than 10 years. Back then, it was, I was always on the casual side of the industry, and back then it was all about online flash games. So I was working for Spill Games as a licensing manager, basically buying up to 1,000 licenses a year of small flash games. After that, moved on to Ubisoft for a bit, and then 4 or 5 years ago, I found my own company, Tamalaki Publishing, fully mobile, fully focused on casual, because that's where my strength is and most of my knowledge. Yeah, we've been publishing mostly like Hidden Object, Match 3, Time Management, and all kinds of casual games ever since.
Thank you for the intro, guys. Obviously, we have like really veterans of the games industry here by the table. So like we will try to make this panel as interactive as much. So we'll first go through like a few basic topics, and then we expect a lot of questions from you guys because this thing is for you, for the indies that are pitching their products. So when we talk about pitching and being on the other side, like what are the things that immediately draw your attention during a pitching session? For instance, somebody is standing in front of you, he starts the pitch, shows you his trailer, short gameplay demo, and there starts pitching. Like what is like literally the first thing that draws your attention immediately?
So beside the aspect of the game, because that of course it draws your attention, but the first thing. But for me, it's really important, and I really appreciate the studios or the yeah, even if it's like one man show studio that that they really prepared and they take this really seriously, and yeah, they thought it through before and they rehearsed at home, because I mean it's a real thing that we are doing here, even if it's, you know, we are in the games industry and we should really have fun to, and enjoy what we are doing. It's still business, and there are two different companies and entities there, and we are there, and it's our time as well. So I really appreciate when the other come prepared. And beside that, I like when they have a really good elevator pitch, you know, like a vision. But I don't like these like generic ones that sound like, oh, our game is gonna be the best horror game out there. It's like, who can tell what the best horror game like is, or what's defined by? So it needs to be more concrete. So a good yeah, elevator pitch. It's nice. And for me personally, I appreciate those that think about the audience, and that know how, you know, how important games are, and what strong voice we can have now through games. As you know, like the games industry is much bigger than the music and movie industry nowadays, and you should know that what you put out there might be played in a few years by your kids or by your nephew or niece, and I don't know, we should be more responsible about that. So I like people who they think about their audience in one way or another, yeah, and they show it.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that, you know, if you ask for like the one thing I would notice first that I like is like the appropriate level of confidence, because like you want somebody who like believes in the project, but not to the point where they're like clearly crazy. So like you want somebody who like thought about it, did the homework, and you know they're coming in because they really believe in what they're doing, and it shows. So I think that's the, you know, if I'm just gonna say the first thing that I would notice is like, you know, how they present and the confidence and the fact that they know the material and that they know, like, you know, they've done their homework. That's I would say the first thing I would look for.
Yeah, to kind of go back to the scenario that you described, starting off with a video, that is already something that's not really like a given. Not every pitching developer does that, so I'd say that is already a very good start. And then what's also really important is timing. You know, like a video of 10 seconds is far too short. That's just a teaser that only brings up more question marks in my head. A video of 2 minutes is far too long, and I'm probably going to fall asleep halfway. So I'd say timing is also really, really important with an issue, because I always say publishers are like flies. We have a 3-second, you know, attention span or something, and then we're basically, our mind is already wandering, because, you know, you're not the only one who's pitching. There's many a day. So yeah, I mean, just practice and focus on and work on your timing, because it's really important to keep the attention so that the publisher remembers your game at the end of the day.
Cool. So now that we have defined like few of the things that you find interesting or like very positive when somebody starts pitching you the game, what would you say are like the negative aspects of it? Like, what are the things that you recognize immediately that put you off of the project right away when somebody starts pitching it?
I would say that there are those pitches when maybe the team comes in and they start saying like, oh, we need money to go to that show, we need money to put this in the project and that, we need money for, I don't know, to pay our salaries. So it's just about what we need, and yeah, and they don't present at all like what's the opportunity for the publisher and why they are the right fit for that publisher, and why I don't yeah, why we should work with you. And we don't want to hear about the negative things and about the problems. We want to hear about like, yeah, how you are going to help us become even better and, greater. And yeah, so
Yeah, for me, like biggest turn off is like when people, like again, like I mentioned, the confidence that comes from having done your homework, and some people have not done their homework, and then they come and they don't really understand what they're. Sometimes they pitch, and then you say, "Oh, we're going to be the first game that does this," and then you say, "Oh, how about this game?" It's like, "Oh, yeah, I guess that game does it too," and you're like, "Okay, like what are we doing here?" Right? So these the understanding of the market, why you're there, why is this compelling. Even and I understand even on all the pitching sessions we had yesterday, sometimes the guys you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. But it's nice if you at least have an opinion and say like, hey, I don't know how much we're gonna charge. I want to define that with you, but based on my research, it's probably gonna be somewhere between X and Y. I think like those are the kind of answers we're looking for. Is like that you done your homework and you understand the market, even if you don't feel like you can make a final decision, which is great because we want to do that together. But at least you've done the homework and you understand, how your thing relates to everything else.
Yeah, and kind of hooking into that, I often ask developers for like what the unique selling point of their game is, and if the answer is like the game has beautiful artwork, well, that might be like a really good point about your game, but it's not unique because there's many games out there with beautiful artwork. So it's I think it also has to do with basically that level of confidence and not be like too overly passionate about your game, but really be able to take a step back and look at it from the outside and like what is really appealing about this game, and even for people who wouldn't naturally be drawn to that type of game that you're making, what would they find mostly interesting on it, and also try to focus on that during your pitch.
I want to add something else. So a question I ask all the time is, what is your competition? Because that also helps me understand, if you know, if you've done your homework, but also if you know what audience you are targeting. And and unfortunately, there are still many studios that they don't know whom they are competing with. They don't know how big is the target audience out there. They don't know how many units they could sell, because if you research your competition, then you'll have a good idea about that. And they don't know either what are the motivators for their users. So why would those users play those kind of games? And there are so many tools out there, free but even paid tools, and just if you spend a few minutes online, it's so easy to find this info. A really good tool is Quantic Foundry, where if you go there and you search a game similar to yours, you can find what motivates the people that are playing those games. And if you look for Candy Crush, for example, you'll see that the main motivator is completion of the game. So if you are trying to make a similar game, so don't focus on, I don't know, on art or something. Make sure you have the main thing there.
Since you guys definitely saw a lot of pitches, and we are talking about the things that put you off, do you have some really interesting anecdotes of the pitches that went really wrong, like in a really funny way? We don't want to badmouth anybody, but like some really maybe funny examples of what not to do.
I don't have like concrete example, but I can say that it's really bad when those that pitch, they say like they don't play the kind of games they are pitching. So that's
Yeah.
Yeah,
There
people
are
can
those.
say really weird things when they're nervous, or they can completely forget about the time. If you have a 5-minute pitching slot and 4 out of 5 minutes are like just introducing your team and then building up sort of a narrative and how you got to develop this game, and then time's up.
Yeah, just trying to think if there's something like funny. I don't know. Like it's stuff. I mean, yeah, I guess the most like crazy ones I've seen is when people clearly like have no idea how the industry works, and they come, because it's probably their first attempt of doing this, and then they come with like, oh yeah, we're gonna sell as many units as World of Warcraft, and then you're like, okay, and like, I think those are probably the ones where, like, yeah, I mean, even though, part of our jobs is to be professional while we listen to this stuff, like in your brain, you're like, oh my god, what's going on? So you won't tell because we're gonna be like serious, like, oh yeah, World of Warcraft. But yeah, inside.
Yeah, of course. But like for someone who has a game, let's say somebody who's completely new in a business, or a product, or really, really, really cool industry-related service, what do three of you think is the best way, like, to reach out to an investor or a publisher? Maybe not even like the conventional pitching at a conference. Like, what do you think is the best way to approach it? Is it like just dropping you an email and like dropping you a short email pitch, or is it like visiting a conference, entering the pitching competition, or some completely different way, or stopping you in an elevator and doing the elevator pitch, or like what do you guys think? Like what is the best way to approach?
I would say do all of them, really. Yeah, I mean, for example, I know that I answer basically every email pitch that I get, but I know there's a lot of publishers who don't do that because they simply don't have the time, or it just slips through the cracks. I know that there are people who prefer to just have a conversation here at conferences, and there's other people who don't because they already have a full schedule at conferences. So it just really also depends on who you're talking to. Some are really active on Twitter. You can reach out on Twitter, but for example, I hardly tweet at all. So it just really depends who's in front of you, and I just try everything, and one of those ways must work.
Yeah, I'd also say, I mean, that's like pretty good advice, because like you can't guess, right? So like you should probably try everything and then let people tell you if you overstepped or something. But the other thing too is like really understand, or like, I mean, I guess you could pitch everyone, but like maybe a better strategy is like figure out who you think, based on what their portfolio and the size of the company, and like who do you think would be a better partner for you, and then go after those people, and then let them know that's why you're reaching out, and say like, hey, I'm reaching out to you because you published a similar game, or you're like about the same size, or I saw you like doing this other thing. One thing, and when you're talking about like turnoffs, like I definitely remember getting these emails when people like, hey, I really love working with Bandai Namco, and here's a project I did, which is my best project ever, game X, and then you can kind of clearly see it's a template, and they don't actually mean anything, right? And I've seen emails sent to me with like a wrong name, like people put some other name instead of my name. And oh, by the way, like it's actually not rocket science. So like figure out the spelling of the name of the person. I know it sounds like a little thing, but I have a weird name, and like it's very common that people like misspell my name. It's not to the point where I would go and say like screw you, but like it is like okay, so you don't care enough about me, like to like not like literally just spend 1 second to make sure like the name matches the one that's on my business card or on my email signature or whatever, right? Fine. But yeah, those are like also like some small turnoffs.
Yeah, and don't address me with dear sir. My picture is all over the internet. I have a pretty unique name. It takes 3 seconds of Googling to figure out I'm a woman. And you don't want to know how many times I get an email of dear sir. And I just said that I answer all the email. Well, actually, I have to correct myself. I answer all the email that's for me. So I delete, the trash can is very short access if you address me wrong, because that's clearly not for me. I'm not going to read someone else's email. It's not for me. I'm not touching that.
Yeah, so the message here is like publishers are people as well. Andreea?
Yes, so as I said, you should prepare before, do your homework, and adapt your pitch for the publisher. And I agree with the fact that you shouldn't send to everyone. Make them feel special. Make them feel like that pitch is only for them. And I think all of them, all the publishers out there, they have contact emails on their web pages, so use those. It might be difficult sometimes at conferences to get a meeting with them, but that's why you have now the Romanian Games Developers Association. They have a lot of contacts, so maybe they could help at times with making introductions or or bringing the people you'd like to hear. So this is about publishers, about investors. That's not the same from what I know. You need to, they're not so easy to find. There are associations that they help on that side as well. So actually last week in Stockholm, I've been to an event called Invest in Games, organized by the local association. And I mean, it works better there because we have so many companies that have been publicly listed and that got huge investments there. So it's not there. It's also a little bit of lobbying doing those events, but it's possible. So I think for the first step would be to try to work with the local association, especially if you are a small indie, to find investors, or funds that can invest in games. And of course, internet. There are some funds out there, but the biggest one are quite secret. So the
Cool.
angel investors.
Thanks. When somebody is pitching you a project, what is like the key information that you want to learn from the pitch? Like, what are like, let's limit ourselves to like top 3 things that you really want to know about the project that somebody's pitching to you, like the 3 most relevant things.
I basically just want to know the basic business information. Right? It's like, what type of game is it? Where, when do you want to publish it? Where are you gonna launch it? If there's gonna be a soft launch or translations, how much do you need? How long is the complete playthrough? If it's like a just a linear adventure. And it's just like these very, very basic facts about your game. And if you just like dedicate one slide in your presentation about it, then it can already be extremely helpful and getting an idea of not just the potential of your game, how you see your game, but also how well you thought about it and how serious you take your own project.
Yeah, if I try to synthesize because you said what's the minimum, right? Like I mean, it's tricky because there's actually a lot of detail that we need to make a decision, but it's something like first is what do you need? A lot of people surprisingly come to a pitch and then you ask them, okay, so what do you need? And they're like, I don't know, money would be nice, and then I was a little bit more, focused idea than that, and why should I why should we work together, basically? So I think if I try to simplify, it's basically why do you think it's a good idea for us to work together, and what do you need, and then I guess that turns into a lot of detail, but the spirit of it is I need to know very clearly what you're looking for, and why do you think I can I would be a good partner for you to get that. So
What I would add to that, so for me it's good to know, or it will be good for us if the game is suitable for streaming. So especially nowadays when Twitch is so big and all the other streaming platforms, and then if it can be easily ported to other platforms, and if it's suitable or to be released worldwide. So we don't want to limit ourselves, only to Eastern Europe or Europe or the Western market. So we would like to release these games also in Asia, for example. And I really want to know about the team. What's your track record? Why you work together, and your experience, and then what do you have in the team, and what is needed, what resources is needed. Because if you are saying you are only 2 artists and you are working with a freelance programmer, that the risks for us are higher, of course. So it's good to know from the beginning.
Yeah, the team is
What do
actually
you
a really good point. So like if I can like go back and finish my third point. So like, yeah, like what do you want? Why do you think we should work together? And the third one is like, why should I believe you? And I think the team is kind of like that, right? So like you come with all this stuff, so it's gonna be the best, it's gonna be amazing. And then I'm like, oh, really? So like, why? And then you say, look, we all worked on this game. That's so the million copies. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm listening. Like, tell me more. So like those things really matter, you know.
Okay, great. So now we went through all of those things that you consider to be the most relevant. Like, but people, what the usual mistake is that when indies are pitching their project, they clutter their pitch with a lot of irrelevant information. So what's like the typical information that you think is completely irrelevant to the pitch, like the usual mistake that they do when they pitch? And for instance, like we mentioned before, you have 5 minutes to pitch, and then I spent 4.5 minutes talking about why we have chosen the red color to be the theme of the game. Maybe that's relevant for the project, I don't know. But like, what's completely irrelevant?
Yeah, I think probably the most common like rookie mistake I've seen is like spending way too much time on the story of the game. Like if the game's not about story, I mean like obviously if it's a story game you might spend some time there, but a lot of people have like, you know, this world and then this thing and then, you know, this magical thing and then this thing's gonna happen and then you run out of time and then you're like, oh, okay, I don't even know what the game is and like anything else. So a lot of people get caught up in like their, you know, they should be excited about their game, so I understand why. But like when you're trying to pitch it, like you really should synthesize and focus on the you know, big strokes rather than like going to like super nitty-gritty detail about like anything.
So I would say again, like prepare and have an elevator pitch. Yeah, a really good one. And you know that's why it's called elevator pitch. You need to be able to say it in a really short period of time, and yeah, and prepare with your friends or colleagues beforehand. So don't come there and yeah, without knowing what you want to say. And
So no faking it. No faking it.
I would say also a common mistake is if you show a video to have too many like cinematics in there. I mean, you know, a little bit of intro is good,
No
but
game at all. Yeah.
if like a minute is like only your beautiful intro story, I don't know anything about your game yet, right? And it's actually kind of the same thing when you do a little demo. If I'm stuck in the tutorial of your game during the demo, then I'm not really going to get the full gameplay experience of it. You know, that is more important when you follow up later and it's more in depth. And I really want to check out your game and kind of see what the potential drop off of your game could be. Then I want to know how the playthrough of the first levels in the tutorial is, because that's where my expertise can maybe help you. But if you really want to convince me of the potential of your game, it would be better to start me off like right away further on in the game where everything is fully unlocked and I can see all the awesomeness and all the collectibles and the wonderful steeds you can have in your open world RPG, you know, those kind of things. So yeah, you know, before you start pitching, then you know, really kind of think of having a demo version like that ready. And to add on to that, never rely on Wi-Fi or internet connectivity. Make sure that every demo works offline, even if it's some kind of PvP. You know, try to make some kind of local connection or bring your own Wi-Fi or something, because I've seen plenty of PvP demos go wrong just because the Wi-Fi wasn't working.
Okay, cool. Before we turn to the audience questions, one last thing that I have to ask you. If you can, like, tell me at least 1 or 2 examples of the pitches that really impressed you in your career, or maybe if you were part of the pitches during this week, were there any particular pitches that really, really impressed you and why?
I mean,
Yeah,
one thing I can say is like the pitching can be a little dangerous. You know, like I worked on, you know, big publishers for a long time, and like sometimes it's easy to get like a game approved because you know the demo is great, or like, you know, the pitching can actually oversell the stuff sometimes, and that's dangerous. I think probably like the most important thing, and I know this is kind of obvious, but like the most important thing when you're trying to pitch something is to make sure that whatever you're pitching is solid. So it doesn't matter like I know everybody thinks their thing is solid, but you know, you all have friends and, you know, this kind of events, like it's kind of nice to just run the idea by as many people as possible to think and see if am I crazy? And but yeah, if everybody says no, this is great, then, you know, pitch. because yeah, I've definitely seen some times where the demo is amazing, and then there was no way the game could get done or things like that, right? So I think you can't be too successful at pitching, or successful at the wrong things, because people like, despite popular opinion, like publishers are people, and then like sometimes we get swayed by nice graphics, and or by somebody who's very charming, because sometimes somebody's like so persuasive in person, you're like, oh my god, yeah, I really want this game, and then 5 minutes later it's like, what? Like, this is crazy. That stuff happens. So I think if you actually want to be long-term successful, then you got to be good not just at pitching, but also make sure that your idea is solid. And again, it goes back to the homework. Making sure like you kind of nailed everything before you get to the moment where you're pitching.
Cool.
Actually, I had the chance to review some pitches that maybe initially they weren't very strong, very solid, or they weren't as good, but they didn't give up, and they got better and better. In a few months, they pitched again and again, and I think we had like 3 or 4 review sessions with them. And in the end, it was successful. So if you feel that that game is for that company, and if you know that they are taking new games, I mean, try again. Yeah. But this doesn't mean that the first time when you try, you should go with a really, really bad pitch, because this is how they are going to remember you. And it's kind of difficult to change the first impression that you are making. And what I want to say is that those pitches in the end, they were like so good. So not that only they knew very well their competition, and they knew very well how they would complement the company, but they even thought about like long-term plan, how they're gonna support the game after release. They thought about user-generated content, about how they are gonna engage with the audience, how they are gonna work on the retention. So yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, I guess what it comes down to is just practice, right? Because like you say, I've also had a situation where a developer pitched to me 2 or 3 times, and every time I saw they got a little bit better, like they actually listened to feedback without throwing their own whole game idea overboard, just selectively listening to feedback that they thought made sense and they thought they could really apply in a good way to the game. And to kind of see that feedback's taken into account like that gives me this warm fuzzy feeling, because like, oh, I can help you. My previous feedback helped you. And it helps to make the game better, not only pitching towards me, but also again pitching towards other developers. Other publishers. And yeah, it's just while doing that, with every round of feedback, you keep on practicing. The pitch is just getting better and better.
Great. Thank you so much for all of your answers. And now we're going to give the audience opportunity to shout off a few questions your way. So can we see yes, we have one question there.
Wait a second. First tip is like always make sure the mic's working.
So on average, how many pitches do you have a year, and what is the rate of success? So how many indie games are successful in pitching to you and got a contract?
Ooh, I mean, it's hard. I mean, let me guess. Let me try to put a guess on this. So if you're just talking about, I assume you're trying to talk about similar games to like your game. So, like Steam, console, downloadable, kind of. I would guess we see something like 1,000 maybe in a year, and I would say we publish maybe 1 or like 2. Yeah, it's definitely not like a super high rate, and part of the reason is because we are a big company and we are a global company, so we actually see pitches in the US, in Europe, in Asia. Like we obviously see a lot of pitches. I'm just trying, and by the way, I'm just talking about that specific segment of like, I'm not including mobile or other things. And yeah, we only have so many games we can release in a year. Like we don't want to release 100 games a year. We want to release less, better games. I mean, that's the other thing too. Like maybe 5-10 years ago, there were like more games in the market, but now a lot of publishers are focusing on like less, like better games rather than just like shotgunning everything. At least we are. So I think, yeah, in our case, like the hit rate is not super high.
Yeah, it's same here actually. Up to 4 years ago, just on Android mobile, I was publishing like 1 game a week, and it was just like every just short games, burn through it in a few hours. Next week a new one. But that kind of worked back then, and now that doesn't work anymore. Now I have to really be careful about which games I'm going to invest my marketing budgets in. So yeah, it's kind of the same where maybe 2 tops 3 games a year. And the amount of games I review a year, I guess, comes, well, not 1,000, but I guess it comes very close to like the 500 range.
So actually, since I'm quite new at Reviewer, I don't know exactly how many games, but I'm pretty sure we have like at least 200 or 300 per year, and the number is smaller because we work only with indie developers. I know from previous experiences, like Paradox, that they were getting like 1,000 pitches per year. At Raw Fury, the success rate, the onboarding rate is quite high. Because yes, we are targeting, we have like a multi-platform strategy. Oh, sorry, multi-portfolio strategy. And we announced the free games only to be released in Q4 this year. So 3 new indie games. So yeah, and we have many more for next year, but I cannot talk about them. Only the last night I think it's announced for next year, and Kingdom 2 Crowns, but there are more.
Do we have another question? Yes, we have one up there.
Couple hands.
Actually, a lot of them. Okay, but I think we have definitely time for a few more.
Yeah, and hopefully this is the best. You guys, like Damir mentioned in the beginning, this is really for you guys. So please ask.
Yes. We don't hear anything, and the mic is not working. Yeah. Let me give you the other one.
So, when looking at a new game, at what stage in the development process are you? So,
what stage?
Yeah.
In our case, like whatever. Like I think the sooner, generally, the better. The other thing too is like many games that we actually publish, we never talk to them just once. So like it's usually like see the game here and then see a little bit more progress there, and then at some point you get tighter and you actually sign a deal or something. So the sooner the better, at least in our case, sooner the better, and then with constant updates, yeah, like starting at concept and then updates every time you hit some other milestone and talk about it. Obviously, if you have something ready, we'll look at it as well. But I think I think it just gives more opportunity for us to like make sure that we're synchronized on everything. Like making these games is like a partnership, and more so. Before it used to be like a thing you do in release, but now like you gotta release, run it, update it. So it's not like a 1 month relationship, right? It's like a 2-3 year relationship. So like or 5 year relationship. So we want to make sure we start kind of dating early, and then like so when it becomes serious, we already have like a strong relationship.
Yeah, for us as a small publisher, basically in any stage of the development process, we want to help you. But even if it's already like concept phase, but when we really can make a commitment is when we can be sure that it's going to be working, functional, it looks good, and that there's going to be enough content. So I'd say that would be up to like at least 50% finished. And that's just like for the first project that we ever do with a developer. If we already worked with that developer before, then we already have this relationship built up, this mutual trust, and then we can already like start like funding and helping from a much earlier stage. But when it comes to like a completely new developer-publisher relationship, for us to really make commitments, at least halfway finished. A vertical slice would indeed be, that would be a very, very good starting point, and then we can really seriously start sort of negotiating, and we can start working with milestones then, where we For example, if we help you with some upfront funding, there was firstly a little bit up to the next milestone and stuff, just to kind of also protect ourselves a little bit, because it wouldn't be the first time that I'm losing money to a developer I never ever hear from again. And they probably move to, Honolulu or something. I don't know.
At Raw Fury, we are working with developers that have games in all the stages. So we signed games that have been already announced, but not finished yet. So they're still working on them. That's possible as well if it's the right fit. Also games that are in early stage of development. It's a little bit tricky when it's only when you have only the concept and you don't have even a prototype to show or anything, because I experienced some situations when the concept looked great, but then the first playable build was not at all what was in the concept. So make sure the concept is exactly what you can deliver. Don't make it look much nicer than it should be.
Catalin was trying to optimize and he got caught in the middle.
So yeah, I heard like two completely different opinions. So one is, so for this vertical slice, would you say that a fully unlocked feature set would work best, or just focus on the initial user experience?
I don't know. I think each publisher is different, so I think and some other people gonna
Yeah, I'm afraid there's not really a cookie cutter model for how to best approach a publisher, because like big publishers function slightly different from smaller publishers, and then Asian publishers function different from maybe American ones. So I mean it's a bit of like just trying out and see how a publisher reacts to something. If you come with a concept, they might tell you like, hey, come back later because we can't do anything with this. If you come with vertical slice, they might like, well, how far are you? Maybe you should have approached this earlier, because actually we would go back to the fundamentals of your game and change this and this and this. So yeah, it really depends on what the publisher is also looking for and what their approach is.
Yeah, you can always ask as well, like, before, if you book a meeting and say like, hey, what would you like to see? And if somebody says, hey, I really need a vertical slice, and you don't have it, you say, okay, maybe we meet in the next event, not this one. And, that stuff's fine too.
Yeah, it's never too early to already approach and try to build up a relationship.
We all know that there are cases, especially in mobile free-to-play, when publishers, they are going to start talking to you only after your game was soft launch, and they look at the metrics. So that's a way to do publishing as well. But I guess that's not how it's for us here, because we are targeting other kind of games. So yeah, it really depends from publisher to publisher. But we appreciate, that you are not only after the money. You know whom you want to work with from early stage. I guess you all have your favorite publishers, or you should have. So you should know those that are best suitable for your game, and start talking to them even before having a game. Like, become friends with them. So we want to build long-term friendships, long-term partnerships. So and hang out together.
So one question here.
Could you maybe share a bit of how you see the future of the mobile games industry? Like, is there any chance again for premium? And inside free-to-play, do you think all the games have to have constant content updates? Or inside free-to-play, only ad-funded games will also have a future?
Yeah, so is there any chance for premium? I think there's a chance for premium right now. There's probably not a chance for premium if you're like a massive publisher like we are, but like if you're just yourself and you're selling your game by, and it's probably enough money for yourself, right? So I think there's that. Second, the new App Store, I don't know, like whoever has iOS 11 on their phone, like the new App Store, like remove the top grossing like area completely, and so I think it will bring premium back up. I think that's one of the things that Apple likes. So I think premium games will have a higher chance, or will make more money, at least in the beginning of the new store. I don't know if that's going to stay, but like because they're going to get more exposure. Now, Yeah, I think there's if you're asking like, will a premium game be the top grossing game in one of the mobile stores in the future? Like, I don't think so. I think that Pandora's box is open, but because free is just too compelling. But it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be profitable, and that it's not a good business for some people. I know a company. I like to mention these guys like. Oh man, I forgot their name. But like they're like a company, British guys who make these like super hardcore strategy games. They charge $15 each for all their games, and they have such a fan base that every game they release, like a ton of people buy it, and it's more than enough money for them. They're like 8 people who don't have an office. They're distributed, so there's different models where it's probably premium is still like super good. It's just obviously for a big publisher like I don't know that we're gonna make a premium game or as like a big strategy in the next few years, but.
I mean, we have the Final Fantasy series on mobile. They are performing quite well, but that's another
But
kind
they're
of
not on the
games.
top grossing
Yes,
charts, though, right? Like they're really not. Like
No,
I
of
think that
course.
I mean, Minecraft is the only premium game that shows in the charts every now and then,
Yeah.
and even that is like not super high.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I
So-
said, those guys are probably super happy with the amount of money they make because no work, just porting, and then $16 each, and
At least I'm sure they're not spending the same budget for paid user acquisition. So, like, I think like even the free-to-play guys, like the monies they keep at the end might not be so high because the budget they spend for paid user acquisition they're huge, which you don't really do for premium games because it's not worth it. The cost per install is gonna be too high. We are publishing premium games on mobile, and yeah, it's worth it. It's working well, but we cannot compare ourselves with the big guys out there. And I think there is a market for premium games because for me, with a premium game, you are targeting a different kind of player, a different audience, and you are trying to provide a different gaming experience, one that is not interrupted by ads exactly when you are enjoying the most the game, or where you don't have to pay in order to not to be frustrated any longer. So yeah, it's a different audience. I would say that it's more for mid-core, hardcore gamers, that especially like PC gamers that want to have a similar experience on mobile while they're traveling or something like that. So there is a market there. It's not so huge, and actually it's in Asia or in China where they would say is the free-to-play market. Actually now they are trying some things there as well. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but let's see. Yeah, for mobile.
And I believe you also had a second question about if updates are necessary for free-to-play games. Well, I mean, we kind of have with some of our most successful games an interesting strategy to that, whereas there are monthly updates for those free-to-play. It's one is a match 3 game, the other's a hidden object game, and it's like a whole city map with quests around it and a whole storyline and things that unlock and collectibles and you name it. So the interesting thing about it is it does have monthly updates with like a monthly time-limited exclusive level where you have to like complete an X amount of quests within a certain time to get a special object, etc. But all these 12 updates are sort of time-themed with like Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and you name it, and they return every year. So the developer only had to sort of develop those updates once, and then we do rerun them every year. It's pretty much the same thing every year. But when the day 365 is about less than 1%. So for those other 99% of players, it's totally new that you're gonna offer that year. So that does make it worthwhile for us to kind of one time make that big investment of making really, really high quality updates roll them out for a year, and then return them every time. And so far, we've been doing like the same Christmas event, last December was the second time we ran it. We didn't get a single complaint about it. Actually, people said like, "Oh, that's great because last year I didn't manage to finish Quest X, and now actually I got the chance to do it again." So in a weird way, people were even happy with it. So yeah, I mean, constant updates, yes, I would really, really recommend it. But I would also say there are ways to be like smart about it and cost effective about it.
I'd say you should update your game no matter if it's free to play or premium. So don't just release it and leave it out there without caring any longer about your fans. Of course, if it's a game that is suitable for that and it was designed like that from the beginning. So think about long term. Think long term. Yeah.
And we have time for one last question here.
Thanks. So you mentioned the things you're looking for when in a pitch. So keeping those things in mind, can you tell us how would you structure a pitch? Which of those elements would you start with? Which of those elements would you end with? In order to keep engagement and keep that engagement throughout the pitch.
I would start with the vision, like a tagline, then a short description of the game. Then I'm interested to know a little bit about the team, the company, and then the competition, the audience, some numbers in there, like your expectations in terms of sales, price, these kind of things. And then if you can get more into details like the art, the game design, and yeah, more things about the game.
Yeah, I think she covered like all the key points. I think having one gameplay screenshot, like not just like rendered art or whatever, like having something that is very representative of the game is like super important. I mean, if you don't have a video like with the game running, but at least like one image that like show that what the game's like. Because I think that time, like what we're trying to do is like we're trying to figure out, and I know like each game is unique and it's your baby and it's like nothing else in the world. But like what we're trying to do is the opposite, which is like, okay, what is this like? So I can try to sell it. Like, is this like this? Is this like that? So that's kind of what we're like mentally trying to do. Okay, if it's like this, then it's probably going to be for these people and it's going to sell this much. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do like pattern matching on what you're doing. So the more you can help us on that, the better. And I know it sounds weird because, like I said, your baby's special, but for us, it's just a thing we're going to sell.
I forgot to say about the key selling points. It's nice to have those as well. And then why you are a good fit for us or why we should work together, according to you.
All right. Damir, any last words? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think that we managed to reach the conclusion that having a clear pitch with a clear goals, clear intentions, and definitely something to show is something that's needed. And I would say that the more important conclusion here is that the publishers are people and they want to feel special. So thank you for your time. See you during the closing ceremony. Thank you. And thanks, guys.